Okay, welcome everyone back to A Minute with Mud. This is episode 7. I'm not sure if it'll be a clarifier or not on Mud's shattered operating system. I'm in the Red Raven community room. Music might start soon. So I wanted to clarify that, everything's turning, so everything's changing. I'm just doing this to get rid of all of my past stories, have them documented, and just be just done thinking about them, hopefully. So to go back to some of my history is when I was 18, I had just turned 18 and I was drinking with a few friends, frenemies, I suppose you could call them, in Fingal, and we were hungry and thought about robbing the store. So my ex-wife, she was I think 16 at the time, and she was visiting from Utah. Her parents had let her visit me, and we were driving around. We were going to rob the Fingal store, but then there was people there walking in town, so I knew that not to do that, but they did it. We did it anyway. And then they did the gnome store as well. So that was my very first felony. The cops came to question me, and they questioned my ex-wife first, and we weren't married at the time, but she came back into the house and just said, tell them everything. So I did, and I ended up ratting myself out for robbing the cafe and the bar as well. Small town, young, dumb. So yeah, that's not on my record. I had finished my probation and everything, and so that's not there. But that was my very first run-in. Well, not my very first run-in, but serious run-in with the law. I had done a lot of drinking beforehand, so I had a lot of minors in possessions. And, I was just a wild child. So that my stepdad was a carpenter, so I got to learn how to do. I poured my first concrete when I was 9. I did a lot of mowing lawns, helped with roofing, things like that. My biological father is a mechanic. When I was 14 and got a chance to move to Utah to get away from Fingal and North Dakota, because I wanted to ever since I was a kid. I learned a little bit of mechanics. My very first car was a Duster Volare 76 or 79, something like that. They only made them 1 year, and so I worked really hard on that, did the front tie rods, all that stuff. But I didn't want to follow in my father's footsteps, so I stopped doing the mechanic work. That was my very first job as well, was being a janitor or a custodial assistant. I like to say custodian. It sounds a little more professional than just janitor. And I did a really well job. My first summer that I got to work, I was 14, and so I could only raise a certain amount of money. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember I worked all summer long, and I was able to buy a $250 CD player because CDs had just come in, and then using Columbia House to get your 10 free CDs over and over. My very first CDs that I purchased were at a pawn shop, and I remember there was the Skid Row, there was Queen's Greatest Hits, Green Jelly, which I loved Green Jelly. I had no idea that Maynard was even in that band. Three Little Piggies, not butter, but so that one, and I can't quite place the next one. I think the Four Seasons, maybe. But I brought the Green Jello song stuff back to North Dakota that summer, and we were all rocking out to it for a long time. Way before any mainstream people even probably knew about it. I got my first computer when I was in 2000. After I was married, I purchased my ex-wife's mom helped us purchase 2 acres and a house that my mom's cousin, which was kind of like my second mom, and my other cousins had lived in. So we bought that house. We had it for 4 years. It was like $8,000, and it was, the eights, the crazy eight numbers again. And then 4 years later, the furnace guy did some work, and as soon as he pulled up out of the driveway, we were sleeping in our bed, and I went back to bed and just like, thank you for your work. As soon as he pulled out and drove away, boom, and black smoke was pouring out of these old vents. Tried to get it to put it out with water, couldn't do that, called 911. They brought the old fire truck, Fingaltown did, and I'm talking like this town has like 100 people in it. And one of the town drunks and my stepdad was there, and they had just finished hooking up the hose to the fire hydrant, and I took the hydrant and I did it myself. I put the fire out myself, and everybody was saying, why don't you just let it burn down? I'm like, no, this is my house, there's all my stuff in there. I kept running in and out trying to get my cat, Raven, she would like to hide out behind the shower area when she was scared, and I had to crawl in there and get her. I did mouth to mouth on her, but she didn't make it. My Pac-Man frog, he dug a hole in the dirt, was there. Everything was full of black soot, everything. But it was salvageable, so we traded it to a family friend of mine for a motorhome, a 76 Itasca motorhome. And then we took the $16,000 from the insurance, like young and dumb, and went up Highway 101. First, I made sure we had a divorce because I had already we were just done, and then she cheated on me, and I couldn't take that. So, after 2 DUIs and whatever, I was drinking the whole time. My cousin Joe, I'm sorry, Joe, still, for bringing you along. We would have died, we would have killed each other, kind of thing. So there's that. So I lived with the guy that owns the Fingal Bar. It's a bar restaurant convenience store. There's no gas station in this town, and he was kind of a mentor. He was a little shady at times, a lot of times, and had a grenade personality where he'd just blow up and flip out on everything. I've never heard anybody swear so cohesively in my life. It's really something. But I lived with him at the time of the burglaries, and off and on later on. So, to clarify that. And then also I wanted to mention that I was very abused emotionally and physically as a child, because I was obviously unruly, and the only way they knew how to deal with it was the old school ways, growing up on farms and harsh punishments and stuff. So the spankings, and that's why I still today have a love for down feather pillows, because every time I got in trouble, which I knew was almost every day, after school I would try to hide, go run somewhere else and do whatever. But and one of my best friends, I would always go to his place and play Sega, PlayStation, those things, and then I would get the call, your time to go home, and I was like, okay, because she'd be calling or come find me. We had tree forts all the time. I was always the leader of the forts, and my friends and my cousin, they were my same age, and then my best friend was a secretary, and was a vice president, and then there was secretary, so we had like 3 of us. We really didn't have much. But anyways, I would keep that pillow next, it would always be cold, because the cold pillow, the feathers would get cold, and every time I got spanked, then I would put it on my bottom and just breathe. A lot of running, a lot of screaming, hollering. It was a completely hostile environment, and there's no blame, no guilt, no shame on any of that. I'm grateful to have made it through, and glad that I didn't get put into the foster system, even though it was maybe have been easier. I don't know. They were threatened and stuff before, but on the first year of kindergarten, when I had to go move to Fingal and go to kindergarten second time, I would get beat up every day coming home from school, because The kid I went to school with and his older brother were there, and if I even tried to fight back, the older brother would beat me up. So I remember times when my moms would scream out the window, "Just leave him alone." I mean, this is only 2 blocks from the school to my place. I had a tree fort. I remember help building that. Those kind of things. I was going to mention also as well that when I was 14, I believe, I had wanted to buy a BB gun. I wanted a BB gun. And I had done deer hunting. I had done that. But when I first killed my first deer, I was done. I stopped doing it. I didn't ever want to do that again. But I had stolen some money, probably bought candy with it because that was the thing to do. We had penny candy at the time. The guy at the Ferd was his name. He was a wooden leg and a glass eye when I was growing up. It's for serious. And there was glass containers with candy, penny candies. But he died mysteriously one day when I was in 6th grade. Someone had robbed the bar or the bank and store, and they found him in the alleyway. So I think he sensed it because the store was everything to him, and he went to try to get to the store, and then he died there. So it was a weird thing. But anyway, I did that, and then I tried to build a little bed and everything in these woods of the house that I eventually would buy, my cousin's house, which we were always being babysit there anyway. And I had to leave. I tried to run away so many times. But then I got back, and that was the last time I got bare bottom spanked. I was 14. It felt like a borderline sexual abuse, but I dealt with it. And, I would jump out of the 2-story windows sometimes, try to run away, things like that. It was very difficult for me. Very. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that in some form or another. I'm just very glad I didn't get totally sexually abused. I almost did when someone in this apartment I could tell he's a pedo, and my parents just told me to stop hanging out with them, and I took the feeling of it and their advice, and I just stopped. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But one of the times I took a knife after my parents, and I felt really bad because they were like, "Well, we're just gonna put you in foster," and that's worse, kind of thing. I didn't know, so I felt really ashamed. I remember hiding under the kitchen table for a long time. The last time my stepfather hit me was when he hit me, and I just had enough. I was like 14, and I was like, "Hit me again, just hit me again, I'm done." And he was like, "You got problems," and went and sat down and started reading the newspaper. So I was like, I got problems. I did appreciate my stepfather once when I lost a bag of weed, and it was by the toilet, and he gave it back to me, actually. And I was like, "Don't let the other kids find it," because of my younger brother and sister. So, I don't want to get into too much of all that, but just to let you know that it was extremely difficult to get through that. I had wanted to kill them at times, so, my history has a lot of, that hypnotism of it. But the world keeps turning, everything keeps changing, and I've been growing and learning ever since. This definitely might have to be a clarifier. After the house, we moved back to Salt Lake, that's where my father lived in Magneto. And I remember when I lost my virginity with my ex-wife, that night I had run away. So did she and her older sister. And we went to a big-ass show, concert, festival outside. We got to see Poe, and that's the first time I got to see the Violent Femmes, and that was always beautiful. They came here in Fargo recently, and I was like, I'm not gonna go because I want that memory of the best I can. Because see, after the coma, I can visualize these memories, but the emotion and the visual don't match. It's really odd. So it's kind of is really disheartening, really sad gut feeling pain to not be able to feel these certain things. And I've had to relive certain situations. Like I've gone purposely back into dumb situations just to figure out who I was back then, and not really just allowing or accepting that maybe I'm a wandering walk-in soul, because I was extremely depressed at Burning Man Festival when I went there, and sitting on top of a yellow bus because I went with a bunch of fire dancers. And it was about a year to the day that I left my ex-wife, and apparently there was a big storm and a tree that fell over in my dad's house that night. My ex-wife had a dream that I died that night. I'm not sure, but on the way up back to and the bus had a bunch of pigeon shit on top of it because it was in storage. And so that's how I think I got the meningitis. But then I rented a hotel room in Winnemucca, and we all took showers and all that. But then I guess I told them I wanted to go to the ocean because I had made some money with a real estate deal, and then so I told them all to leave. But then I guess I don't know what actually happened. There's a vague memory of a pizza. But I woke up 4 days later, immediately looked over, saw my mom reading some magazine. There was a soap opera on the TV up in the corner, and I looked down and noticed there was a needle in my arm, ripped that out automatically, and then was like, what the hell, and almost ripped out the catheter. But then the nurse was like, stop, wait, and I was like, get it the fuck out. I swear I swore right away. And she did, and then I was like, okay. But they kept trying to put the needle back in, and I remember in and out of consciousness, just struggling to try to get them. They strapped my arm, and I finally got it out. And then the next morning they stopped putting it in. They agreed not to put it back in. I remember I had a piece of paper that had my name written. I had tried to write my name, and it was like Dusteee. It's not even how it's spelled. Like just multiple letters in a row. And also, what was your favorite food? And it was pizza and beer, which is sad. I'm still sad about that. I had to learn to walk again. I wanted to get out of the hospital as fast as possible, because once I got outside, I was like, wow. Extreme gratitude. I miss that kind of gratitude. Oh, so I always go off on all these tangents. So anyways, the emotional value wasn't there, but that's kind of how Burning Man went for me. I've never gone back. I feel like it's been a lot more trendy since then. The year I did go was 2007. It was called the Green Man. And there was some terrorist guy back then that burned the man early, like 2 days into it. So they were rebuilding it the whole time. I remember the temple. A lot of people wrote these amazing things, and it was just like this spiritual wowness. And I remember walking around, and I was reading people's minds, and they were reading mine, and I was getting very confused. It was like complete telepathic connection with all these people and all these amazing creative creations. So that brings me to the fifth density. When they talk about the fifth density, which, I mean, we're moving into it. Like, some people call it the fifth dimension and things. I feel like the densities in the Book of Law of One, the Law of One book with the Ra teachings, the channeled Ra from Egypt, that kind of stuff. But the fifth density has a lot to do with telepathy and not being able to lie to each other. Well, I experienced that for the first quite a while, and it was very difficult to go back into society, because every time I agreed to dumb myself down or participate in all of these societal norms, it sucked. I was like, damn it, why can't these people just wake up, and why can't we just be friends and connected and all as one? But the fifth dimension is coming, or the fifth density, however you want to phrase it, where we won't be able to lie to each other. So you might as well just let it go, heal your wounds, learn from your lessons, Like I would tell, my mom was always so guilty. She was so guilty for the what happened to me and how she had treated me, and how in her desperation chose to be with somebody that she didn't really care about. And that sort of is a karmic contract with what happened with my recent relationship, which I'll share later in the future. But she was always so guilty. I was like, Mom, it's okay, just love me. And it was really hard for her to love me because of that, I think, because she kept reflecting, looking at herself. But yeah, it's all circumstantial. I don't hate the person. I never, ever hate the beautiful spirit inside of anyone. I don't care if they're the wickedest, most shitty person ever. They've got the light in them, because they wouldn't be here. And this whole thing is energy, right? We think it's solid. We're looking at things. Everything is based off a reflection. Visually, anything you can see has been reflected to you. So it's your vision. I remember getting on the bus the first time to go back to Utah right after my coma, like real quick right after my coma, to see who I was or where I lived, visit my dad for Christmas, see my ex-wife, and we met up. It was weird for me. God, we really loved each other. I mean, we will never break that bond. But when she was like, if we ever got back together, and I cut her off right there, I was like, it would be over right then, because it would. It's just, you can't go back sometimes. Sometimes you just can't. There's times when you have to cleanse your karmic with someone and learn and grow with each other, but sometimes you just can't go back. And I knew it from then that true love was mine. I understand what true love is. It doesn't come from anywhere outside of you, ever. You can say, oh, that person inspires me. That's wonderful, but it comes from inside of you. And so I always figured, and even though I had this ugly desire to want her back or to get back together and things like that, I just wanted to remain friends, but we were too close to be able to even be friends. So true love is when two people are loving themselves fully and they agree to create something together. So the true love between two people, but true love is really only exists within you. From my experience, is all I can say about that. So I'm gonna kind of be done with this one. I think I wanted to show you my elephant poo paper. This is, and I'm using my computer this time. Thank you, Matt, for letting me know that my camera has all kinds of funny refocusing sounds to it. But yeah, here's the elephant dung paper, they call it, if you could see that. It's funny looking at myself. This is really difficult for me to do these videos, but I feel like, and also the tarot is explaining as well, and the Mercury retrograde, all this kind of stuff. I just want to be through with it. I just want to share this stuff and be done. Because there's so many lifetimes and certain experiences that I've lived, and I've been suicidal through the majority of it, to just be like, man, let me out, I want to go back home. But I feel like if I don't complete my mission, which happens to be a super extreme moonshot with 3 websites combined, social shopping and infotainment sites combined, in a game of virtual human real life players, to doing the things that create win-win-win life affirming situations, so that's a difficult one. Planet Perfect Days, or PP Days, which has got the novelty to it. I've studied a whole lot, and I could learn even more. But even in the 7 densities, they say there's 7 densities, because the 8th one is just a repeat. It's a recycle. And like the as above, so below, infinity symbol, just, I have no idea why I'm even here doing this. but I want to get it through and over with. So this, I suppose, will be a intermediate clarifier, and tomorrow I'll do the continuation of when I met my isogeochemist paleontologist. There's some long name for her. And I'll continue from there on, from when I was 28, which was, a lot happened in that first year and a half. So, blessings, namaste, take care of yourselves and others. Also, helping other people gives you a dose of serotonin. If you have a problem, help somebody with that same problem. You'll learn from each other. Teacher-student relationship. Listen to more conscious medicine music. Just hold tight. Hold tight. We're coming into an inevitable growth of connection. All these disconnections, they're of no value at all. They're only hurting us. So be more conscious of that. That reminds me of a book that I'll definitely share with that one, is The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And the author eludes me, but he's very famous. He's the one who did Sacred Economics and the giving culture. When he expresses more conscious, because we're all conscious, but the more conscious. Blessings. Take care, everybody.